Hey everybody, Logan here, and finally, after a week, a little more than a week, I've gotten about 90% of my game collection installed into my Polymega. And this machine is very interesting. Very interesting. I finally hooked it up here in my office so we could get some game footage and OS footage. That's what we're going to take a look at in a moment. There's only a handful of games that I didn't install, and those are my 4-disc, 4-disc plus PS1 games, because each disc can take quite a bit of time to install. At around 400 to 600 megabits, it adds up. So I have about maybe a dozen games that I haven't installed, but otherwise I've installed everything. I've played games from NES, Super NES, PS1, Sega Saturn, and Japanese consoles, Super Famicom, Japanese PlayStation. I've played a number of them and tested quite a few out. The machine's not perfect, not by any means. I've come across a couple of games installing Mortal Kombat Trilogy crashed the system. I had to reboot it multiple times before I could get the disc out. Once I got it out, I rebooted again, and it recognized it, went all the way to about 80-something%, and just kept crashing the console. So I've seen issues there. Certain games like Marvel versus I think it was Marvel Super Heroes versus Street Fighter, had a lot of graphic issues. So playing certain games, I have seen visual issues. A lot of visual issues here and there, little tiny ones. But again, it's emulation based. It's not hardware emulation. It's software. It basically rips the game from the disc, emulates it onto the internal storage. With that being said, let's take a look closer at the Polymega and just look at what the system offers. Here we go. So this is the base of what the OS looks like. You can see my collection, playlists, and here, if you're wondering why, because I installed multiple disc games. So I did install a few of my multiple disc games just to see how it displays and whatnot. Media, it's pretty much the same thing. And then your system gives you a basic bare bones menu system. So you can see a couple of different options. When you register a new controller, you hold right like it says, boom, good to go. You can screenshot, you can view your database, which takes you right back to the no, that actually is its entire database of games that it can pull from. Search and back to home. So we're going to go back here. Let's take a look. I'll show you my PlayStation collection. Again, there's probably about a dozen games, multi-disc games, that have not been installed. But as you can see, they group them in fives. So we're looking at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 69 games. So I have around 70 plus games, not including duplicates or sealed copies, of course. I do have a number of sealed games, which I'm not going to open up. Now, this is one. San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing caused the console to crash as well after getting about maybe 2/3 through a race. So I had that issue there. The Power Ranger games I tried out, none of them had any issues. The Mortal Kombat Trilogy, as you can see, it's there, but it says not installed because it caused a crash. Soul Reaver doesn't boot. I don't know why. I've tried, it just doesn't boot. Evil Zone played just fine. Bushido Blade 1 and 2 played fine. So I played quite a few of them. Still haven't played all of them. Pong worked fine, but for some reason did not recognize the joystick in the DualSense controller, or the DualShock. Their version of the controller didn't recognize it. Rampage worked fine. Street Fighter worked fine. But not... So, hold on. Marvel Super Heroes versus Street Fighter. That was the one that gave me some graphical issues. Let's go back. So Japanese, I do have Street Fighter Zero 3, which is Alpha 3 in the US, and Bushido Blade again. NES. Now, if you're wondering, what's Doodle World? Well, they added a couple of their, I guess, modern retro games. So there's a few on there, but as you can see, like Flea, what is Flea? Another one, Dragon Master. They're not real, not classic games. But as you can see, I've got plenty of NES games on here as well. So a number of different genres. Then if we go to the SNES, I've got quite a few. There are a couple of games I am missing, and then there's also a few games that I realized don't completely work. So it wouldn't recognize the cart on a couple of them, so which is sad. But here's my Super Famicom. This is the one where I had the cart stop being read. About maybe 2 or 3 of them. My Romancing Saga 2, that's complete in box. It will not even recognize the cart. I did try it before back on my Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo with the adapter. It works, but I don't know, it just doesn't even recognize it here. But as you can see, got a number of games here. Genesis, I don't have too many Genesis games. I actually sold all these off now. Do not own any of them anymore. Sega CD, I only had the one. Saturn, those are all the US Saturn games I had, not too many. I think I only kept Virtual Cop Daytona and Virtua Fighter. Everything else went. Japanese Saturn, not all of them installed either. I had one that did not install. I can't remember which one it was. But I kept a handful of these. TurboGrafx. Now these all came pre-installed except for the World Class Baseball. That one I purchased just to see how it works. It works just fine. PC Engine, again, the Japanese version comes with those pre-installed. Now, the extended set. Oh, that was a ROM cart. I can't remember what it was, but it was a ROM cart. Let's see if it boots now. Oh, yes, it was Final Fantasy VIII and Earthbound mixed. ROM hack for Super Nintendo. Yeah, there you go. So it worked on here, it just wasn't recognized. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that is just an unknown cart, but it is Super Nintendo. Now, one thing that did happen after the latest update, it removed a number of games that came pre-installed. But on Polymega's website, it does say with the next update, those games will be returned. And they were legit games from TurboGrafx, I think, Super Famicom, a couple of others. They were legit, not like the NES ones that were homebrews or ROM hacks and whatnot. So with that being said, let's try this out. Let's try a couple of games. See what we have here. Let's start with the good old NES. Let's go with... I know Double Dragon 2 works. I was playing that. I was playing my Ninja Turtles games. Gauntlet 2 works. A lot of the NES ones I didn't have any problems with. That's good old Rampage. So if you guys are familiar with Rampage, I am. That's funny. I never even realized that the NES version left out Ralph. So... No, can I be Lizzie? Yes, let's be Lizzie. I always picked Lizzie because I always thought it was a dinosaur, but it was like Godzilla. Whee! Oh no! I've always loved this game. Oh no! Be careful, be careful. Can you imagine someone playing this these days? Wow, that music is just... Whee! Whee! Boom! I'm here! So, I really enjoyed playing this game when I was a kid, especially in the arcade. So, I had to have it on the NES, and I got it way back in the day, but during, I think, like, the Super Nintendo era, I got it. Let's check something else. Let's do classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. 3 works. I have not tried 2. So you do see that green flash on a number of the games when they start. Of course, Raphael. There's only one choice. One right choice. Fire! Hang on, April! Mikey. One of my most played games in the arcade as a kid. Probably my most rented game on the NES. I never owned it. Well, back in the day. My NES was always at my dad's house, so I think we only had like 2 games, maybe 3 games. Because we would always just rent them every time I'd go stay with them. See, runs fine. Ah, stop it. So runs fine. Let's jump to some Super Nintendo. Let us go with F-Zero. Sure, let's try F-Zero. Yeah. Just start. I just want to see how it plays. Visually, everything seems fine. Now, one thing I would recommend... I hate the way this controller feels for this. If you're playing the classic games, go for the original controllers, or their variations of like the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis controller that comes with it. I'm not a fan of this style controller for these games. So, works just fine. That seems to work really, really well. I did try War of the Gems. That worked well. Let's try some Primal Rage. I haven't played Primal Rage in decades. Yet I own it on Super Nintendo and Game Gear. I have 2 copies on Game Gear. One in box and my OG one. Bitmasters. Armadon. I always liked Armadon. Yeah, let's go with Armadon. Yeah, didn't he fart? Wasn't Blizzard one of the ones that farted? I think the two monkeys farted. Rage. Oh, yeah, there he goes. Ow! Don't hit me. There we go. Oh, you don't see it, but when you get beaten... Oh, I just realized it covered it up. The heart explodes. Oh, it might... Oh, yeah, we might see it. Yep, there we go. Look, you see. There we go. Watch. Blap! Okay, so let's try and classic Super Mario World. Just let's see how that boots up, and then we'll jump to Sega Genesis. So, yeah, this looks fine. It looks like... Okay. Boots up just fine. Cartridge-based games I've had zero to no issues with. Like I said, there's been a few little booting or, you know, just installing it. But Legend of Zelda worked just fine. Link to the Past. Let's try Super Famicom plays just the same. Genesis, Sega CD. Yeah, I did try the Power Rangers on the Sega CD. Let's test out Genesis. Let's go with classic X-Men. Oh, I forgot how bad Genesis sound effects are. Reminds me of the Game Gear one. Oh, don't do that. Ah, Wolverine doesn't have a double jump? You know what? It reminds me of the Game Gear one, and the Game Gear one had a double jump. So it runs just fine. I don't know if you guys remember, but in this game, your mutant powers hurt you. Was that this game? No, that was the, they run out. They do run out. Oh, okay, I can't play this game. I can't play that game. I need the Genesis controller for it. It just feels so bad with this controller. I'm just so off. But it's one of those games I haven't played in a very long time. But yeah, so as you can see, Genesis don't really have too much. Sega CD, Sega Saturn. Let's boot up a Saturn game. That's the Japanese Saturn. What do I have here? How about we do a Daytona Classic? See how this runs. I haven't tried it yet. So you guys get a brief look or small look into my retro collection, that which can be installed onto the Polymega. So all my Super Nintendo games, all my Super Famicom, everything I had on the Genesis, the Sega Saturn, are all installed. So cool. Daytona is a trademark. Good for that. Daytona. So everything. Just pick one. Just pick one. Let's. Oh. Okay, so the buttons are a bit backwards on here. Let's just go.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Oh, that's right. I'm starting to use the stick, and I'm like, no, don't use the... Ooh. Not a good D-pad for this. Not a good D-pad. Very stiff. Looks alright, though. I don't like this D-pad for this. I don't like this controller for this game. The Saturn controller is much better for this. So that I do need to find a USB Sega Saturn controller by Retrobit. I only had the official one that had the, I shouldn't say official, but the wireless one that had the Saturn dongle. Had no way to use it on this one. I didn't have the standard USB or anything like that. So with the Polymega, you can't use any third-party controller. You can use the PlayStation Mini third-party controller, which is actually official by Sony. Any of the Retrobit Sega Genesis ones, and what I just read the other day was the 8-bit Do USB adapters. Those should work as well, but I don't know if I have one, so I didn't try it out. So with that being said, let's go to PS1 and test it out. Let me show you what I mean on Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. It'll boot up and you'll see some of the graphical issues. What a throwback. Now loading, but there's nothing to load. Because it's not on a disc. Now I do like the fact that the game recognizes a virtual memory card. It's really cool.
Superhero versus Street Fighter. Choose your alter ego.
Now, you see the graphical issues? Pretty rough on some of the characters. Little history, little tidbit of history on me. This was my first PS1 game that I purchased. I got my PS1 and all I had was a demo, and then this was the first game I bought for it. You can still see it on Ow. Ow. Cheese! That's how you beat him. You beat him with the cheese. Ow. Come on. Oh, we got... Oh. So as you can see, there's a bit of performance issue there and just graphical glitches, but otherwise the game's still playable, still works well. And the majority of the PS1 games do for the most part. Some of them don't, some of them do, and I don't usually find any of the issues right away, except for the few that I mentioned, until I start playing. Now, if you look, for example, let's go to the Resident Evil, you see that it doesn't show the discs up there, but when you click on it, it shows disc 1, disc 2. Since this is technically two different games in one, even though it's two discs, but if you go to, let's see, Parasite Eve 1, then it's going to say disc 1 and disc 2. Now when you beat disc 1, you have to do a disc changer, but there's a whole thing where you can do that. So Parasite Eve 2, Disc 1 and Disc 2. See, of course I have Rampage. But yeah, some of the games were causing issues. WCW Backstage Assault was taking forever to load, and then it finally did. I don't think I had any other issues. SmackDown 2 just doesn't load. If you want to see, it just doesn't load. Hey, maybe it might make a liar out of me this time, because this is as far as we got. I tried it a number of times, and it just never got past this point. So it installed and said it was fine, and tried it again, and this is it. SmackDown 1 works, but, you know, it's one of those things, as you keep playing, as you keep trying, you find out. But with that being said, look, nothing. So, but hey, that's a little look into the Polymega and my collection on the Polymega. If you guys have any more questions, drop them down in the comment section below. I am going to make plenty of retro content now off of this stuff, just to, you know, get away from all the drama that is modern gaming. So let me know what you guys think. Did you pick up a Polymega? Are you enjoying it? How many games do you have installed? Now, before I ended, I did want to say I do have a 512 megabit micro SD and a 1 terabyte SSD in here. So I got 1.5 terabytes of storage available, not including the onboard storage. So that's quite a bit. I leave the onboard storage open for system updates. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this video. Tell me what you guys think of the Polymega. Now that it's officially real, I have it. Can make you guys a lot of content. A lot of content. Like we always say, God bless, be legendary. Thanks again.